The sun had just dipped behind the rows of cozy houses on Oak Ridge Lane, casting a golden hue on the quiet suburban street I'd called home for over 15 years. I was sitting on the porch swing with a glass of iced tea, savoring the late summer breeze, when I noticed the moving truck across the street. It had been there for hours, and the new neighbors were finally unloading the last few boxes. Curiosity tugged at me. I had heard from Martha, our ever-so-chatty HOA president, that a single mother with a teenage son had bought the Miller place. I stood and adjusted my cardigan, then made my way across the road with my signature peach cobbler in hand. Southern hospitality wasn't just a saying, it was how we lived. "Hi there. I'm Linda from across the street," I called out, smiling warmly. A woman with tired eyes but a kind smile turned around, brushing a strand of blonde hair from her forehead. "Oh, hi. I'm Karen. This move has been a whirlwind, but we're getting settled." We exchanged a few pleasantries, and soon enough, I met her son, Jeremy. He was around 17, tall for his age, with shaggy brown hair and the kind of awkward politeness that made me think he was more introverted than rebellious. Karen explained she'd recently gone through a divorce and was trying to start fresh. Over the next few weeks, our small neighborhood wrapped the newcomers in warm welcomes and potluck dinners. Karen and I grew close surprisingly fast. We'd have coffee in the mornings while the kids went to school, and sometimes she'd ask me for advice on home repairs or parenting. Jeremy, quiet and polite, often kept himself, but I noticed he would always wave from the porch when I walked my dog. One Saturday afternoon, Karen stopped by looking flustered. "I've got a work emergency," she said, smoothing her blouse. "I need to be at the hospital in an hour, and I've got no one to watch Jeremy. He's fine on his own, but his internet's down, and he's bored out of his mind. Do you mind if he comes over to use your Wi-Fi or just hang out a bit?" "Of course not," I replied. "He's welcome here anytime." 30 minutes later, Jeremy knocked on my door, a laptop in one hand and a small backpack slung over his shoulder. "Hi, Miss Linda," he said, slightly shy. "Come on in, Jeremy. You can sit wherever you're comfortable," I said, waving him toward the living room. He settled into the recliner while I finished folding some laundry. We chatted a bit, just like conversation about school and video games. I learned he loved digital art and coding and was applying to colleges that fall. I admired his focus and ambition. It reminded me of my own son, Brian, who had moved across the country for work last year. There was something comforting about having youthful energy in the house again. A sudden storm rolled in that evening, rain beating against the windows, thunder rumbling overhead. The flicker of the lights made me glance toward the fuse box. "Hope we don't lose power," I said. Just then, the living room lamp went out with a pop, and the house went silent except for the rain. Jeremy looked up from his laptop. "Oh," he said, blinking into the dimness. "Well, it's a good thing I've got candles and a battery radio," I said cheerfully. "Help me find them?" We lit a few candles, and I brought out some board games from the hall closet. "This is what we used to do before Netflix and cell phones," I said with a grin. Jeremy chuckled. "My mom always says that too." We played Scrabble by candlelight, and I was surprised at how sharp and witty he was. He even beat me by a few points. Time passed quickly, and before I realized it, it was past 10 p.m. "I guess your mom's still stuck at work?" I said, checking my phone, which still had a bit of charge left. He nodded. "She texted me earlier. The storm delayed everything. She's staying overnight." "Well, you can't walk home in this weather," I said. "You're welcome to crash on the couch." He hesitated. "Are you sure? I don't want to be a bother." "Not at all. I'd feel better knowing you're safe and dry. I'll get you some blankets." I set him up with a pillow, a cozy quilt, and a bowl of popcorn. We ended up talking late into the night, mostly about his college dreams, the books he liked, and how hard it had been watching his parents split up. He admitted that the move had made him feel like a stranger everywhere. "I'm sorry to hear that, Jeremy. But you're not alone anymore," I said gently. "Sometimes new beginnings are blessings in disguise." He gave me a grateful look. "You remind me of my aunt back in Oregon. She was always calm, even when things got messy." I smiled and reached over to squeeze his hand for a second. Well, if you ever need a second aunt, I'm just across the street. I headed upstairs and left him to sleep. But around 2 a.m., I heard the sound of thunder again and soft footsteps on the stairs. I stepped out of my room to see Jeremy standing in the hallway, looking uneasy. "Sorry to wake you," he said. The storm's worse downstairs, and the front window started rattling. It scared me awake. "I get it," I said. "You can come sit up here for a bit if it makes you feel better." We sat on the upstairs landing, sharing a throw blanket and talking in whispers while the storm passed. Eventually, his eyes drooped and he leaned against the wall, nodding off. "You can lie down in the guest room, Jeremy." "It's okay," I said, nudging him gently. He blinked sleepily. "Thank you." He went inside the room, and I returned to mine. By morning, the rain had cleared, and the house glowed with soft light. Karen came to pick him up just after 9, apologizing profusely. "Linda, thank you so much. I owe you big time," she said. "No need to thank me." He was great company. Jeremy gave me a warm smile and waved goodbye. Over the next few weeks, Jeremy started dropping by more often, sometimes to ask about home economics assignments, other times just to sit on the porch and talk. It was never intrusive. He had this quiet respect about him. One afternoon, he brought over a sketch pad filled with beautiful illustrations. "I started drawing again," he said. "I feel more centered here." That touched me deeply. There was something about mentoring him, being a calm presence in his life, that gave me purpose in a way I hadn't felt since Brian moved out. It wasn't just me helping him. He was helping me too, filling the silence that had crept into my home since widowhood. One day, I hosted a small cookout, and Jeremy surprised me by showing up with handmade thank you cards for all the neighbors. "I wanted to show everyone how grateful we are," he said. It melted my heart. By the time the school year ended, Jeremy had gotten into a top university with a scholarship in digital design. Karen threw a big party, and of course, I was invited. But what touched me the most was when Jeremy raised a toast. "There are a lot of people who helped me this year, but Ms. Linda," he said, locking eyes with me across the room, "you were like a lighthouse when everything felt dark." I'll never forget that. I held back tears as I clapped, along with everyone else. That summer, before he left for college, Jeremy and I sat on the porch one last time. "I'm going to miss these talks," he said quietly. "So will I admitted. "But I'll visit," he promised. "And email. And call. You're not getting rid of me that easily." I laughed. "Good. I wouldn't want to." He stood and gave me a hug, one of those tight, meaningful ones that say everything words can't. In